What's up, everybody? Today we are here with Howard Frazier, managing partner at Longboard Asset Management. Thanks for taking the time to hop on with us, Howard.
You're welcome. A pleasure to be here.
Just kind of want to go through quickly, your relationship with AdvizorPro. Longboard has been a client of ours for some time now. And we just want to talk about, Longboard's success since becoming a partner with us. Tell me a little bit about your growth story. How has Longboard Asset Management grown since partnering with AdvisorPro?
Well, we've experimented with a number of other options when it comes to getting the data right to fuel our growth. And it's usually been, uploaded into Salesforce, and it can be stale, and it was a snapshot in time versus being, real-time data that's being constantly updated was our typical experience. And, we got to a point where we just realized we needed superior data, especially on RIAs, which is a big focus for us and our core customer. And so we came across Advisor Pro, and if you look at the exact point in time where we started using you guys and sort of our growth from there, it's definitely helped and been something that we use daily, something that I personally use daily, and rely on it to reconcile to make sure that I'm spending my time in the right places.
That's awesome. So, how has Advisor Pro helped you expand your AUM?
So we're a boutique manager, and I'm sure there's a lot of boutique managers out there that have to spend their time really wisely because a large distribution house has a different strategy. They can play the game of numbers. They can, they might have a team that just spans the whole country and can just get incredible coverage. So being a boutique manager, we've got to be more efficient and selective with our time and who we spend time with in the financial advisor world. And so what I found is that Advisor Pro would allow us to identify and set parameters around who we want to go after in a way that's in a user interface that's really easy. So, for example, we know that there's going to be a certain type of financial advisor that a certain size, maybe even using certain other funds in their own portfolio already that complement well with us. And there's going to be these certain characteristics that mean that it's going to make sense for us to speak with them because we're likely to have the best impact on their portfolio. And beauty's in the eye of the beholder as well. So they're more likely to see us and the talent that we have in a positive light because they recognize those characteristics.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for our platform and, many others in sales and marketing, we're all kind of looking for a way to really drill down on our exact target audience. Sales is a lot easier when you're talking to people that are more likely to care about your solution, right? And I think that's the secret sauce of Advisor Pro is, we have a database of the people that you're looking for, and it's easy to find those people, right? So, a lot of sales outreach, LinkedIn is the bread and butter. Are you using Advisor Pro with LinkedIn, and how so? How are you using it to identify and connect with prospective investors?
Well, there's ultimately a problem we solve for our core customer in the alternative space, and so LinkedIn is really useful at being able to find advisors that have either experienced the problem that we help with or are currently experiencing it. One of those is just there's advisors who use alternatives and advisors who do not use alternatives. And we're in the alternatives world. And what LinkedIn offers is this platform where the discussion's already happening about alternatives, and those who are using it are already engaged. So it allows us to go and participate in there and be a thought leader, contribute, comment, just be part of the conversation or lead it. And what I find is that, okay, well, now we can start to be around like-minded people who are using alternatives, and then we can go to the next level and say, how can we optimize your alternatives with our help? And that's where you'll see AdvisorPro come in, because I then sort of will use AdvisorPro to then cross-reference that with our other parameters and see, okay, does this firm of financial advisors really fit into the kind of ideal persona who tends to look like our normal ideal client?
Now, a lot of advisors, are in the older generations. You know, there are more and more young advisors coming into the scene, but most of the market is still, 50s and up. I would say that we might have some advisors in AdvisorPro that aren't on social media and aren't on LinkedIn. Is AdvisorPro able to kind of like cover your back in those scenarios, or do you use it for that at all?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because I wish every financial advisor was on LinkedIn, because if they were part of the discussion that's happening on there, it's a vibrant daily discussion that's happening in real time and basically 24/7. But of course, reality means that not every financial advisor who's a great fit for us is active on LinkedIn. There's actually, tons of advisors who are not active on LinkedIn. And what I notice is that, they will still be on AdvisorPro, and I'd say that that's really the certainly a blind spot that AdvisorPro covers. If I was trying to do this just using LinkedIn, for example, that would be a problem. So I really depend on AdvisorPro multiple times daily to cross-reference different firms, make sure the data is up to date, and I also use it outside of LinkedIn just to find those firms that I know are not present and not active there, and it definitely has my back in that way.
That's awesome. Love to hear it. So let's talk features a little bit. What's your favorite feature in AdvisorPro, the one that you probably use the most?
Well, thinking outside the box, one of my favorite features is the service, actually, and the way that you guys are already on LinkedIn. I'm already on that platform, and so there's no friction for me being able to communicate with you and get fast responses. So that's one of the best features in itself, even though it's not part of the UI. The actual features when it comes to the software would be being able to search 13F filings, right? That's public information. The last thing we want to do is invade a potential customer's privacy, find information out that, by some other means. But 13F filings are public information that gets filed every quarter. The fact that you collate it all, organize it all, make it searchable in an easy-to-use platform and interface, I'd say is a real hit on the feature side of things, because there's going to be certain funds in those 13Fs that really symbolize, again, a likelihood that they believe in alternatives, and that they're going to really see the value in what we can bring as a complement to some of the funds they're already using. And that allows me to sort of fast track finding those advisors.
Yeah, no, I think I find that super valuable in the platform, but I know a lot of our clients do, is like being able to see which advisors are working with your competitors, whether that be, tech platforms or funds. you can see the alignment on the platform. Like this advisor is working with a fund just like ours. They'll probably be interested in our stuff too, and I think that's a great way to just locate, your target audience and prospects. So that's awesome. Um, when you go about creating these lists of people that you're going to go after, could you share a little bit about which search filters you use the most, or the criteria that you're kind of looking for when building these lists?
Yeah, so I think this is the search filters we've calibrated and dialed in to where we're at in our growth journey. So, for example, look, there are some really big firms out there that have in the RIA space, like kind of mega RIAs is what they often get called, and they might have 50 billion, $100 billion or more. And we know that more than likely they're going to become more of a potential partnership later in our growth journey. So for where we're at right now, they'd probably look at us and say, "Hey, you guys are a little too small for the amount of business that we want to give you. We'd like to see you get bigger," and that's fine. So we're looking for sort of more of a lower AUM, right? Advisors that have, oh boy, anywhere from $100 million to $1 billion, let's say, or $2 billion, something like that. And then then there's better alignment, better synergy that we're usable for them, and we're going to be able to grow with them. They're growing. We can kind of grow together versus versus what I'd call a mega RIA that might need more of an institutional level type sized fund.
Yeah.
And that's just part of our boutique world that we live in at the moment in this stage of our journey. So I think that's probably a good example
Yeah.
for search filters. That drives a lot. I think that the location's huge because I travel, so being able to use the location is so helpful at
Yeah.
planning travel. If I'm going to go see a client in one state and I want to go and explore and see whether there's any
Yeah.
like-minded advisors in the vicinity, then AdvisorPro offers me a really easy way to do that while staying within my ideal search parameters
Yeah.
and filters.
Yeah. Being able to overlay those filters and then see all of the contacts that fit those filters on a map is like so huge, especially for conferences, or like you're saying, if you're already flying out to Texas, to talk to an RIA, like there might be one right down the street, you never know.
Yeah.
Um, so
The
I'd
last,
like,
oh,
what's up? No,
yeah,
you
no,
go for it.
last thing I'd say, another feature is the ability to just search keywords. So if we're looking for like-minded people and we know we're trying to optimize people's alternatives, we know we're looking for alternatives users, any of those phrases that may already be used on an advisor's website and lets
Hmm.
us know that that firm is philosophically aligned at a core deep level,
Yeah.
then the ability to pick up on that using Advisor Pro is also another really great feature.
Yeah. It's awesome. So let's talk sales and marketing a little bit. You use Advisor Pro, you generate, a list of leads. What are some of the most successful ways you've had just engaging these advisors? Email campaigns, conferences, having your BDR team reach out. Kind of what are your most successful ways of engaging advisors?
Really, I've got to say LinkedIn. LinkedIn's really been the most successful way to actually take the list that Advisor Pro gives me, and then how can I start a conversation in like the most frictionless way,
Yeah.
right? And does cold calling still work? Yes, absolutely. But if someone's already on LinkedIn and they connect with me and they can see what I do, who I am,
Mm.
how trustworthy we are we bona fide? And
Yeah.
they can get some of that information up front that you really don't get from a cold call. Then that offers me a much smoother way to and more trust building way to start a relationship off, where they've already got more information about me, and our firm and what we do and why they should care. So those I've found that just using those two platforms in harmony of AdvisorPro and LinkedIn, has been the best way. And look, if advisors are not on LinkedIn, that's okay. But then you're just sort of you've got to use other more traditional ways of getting through, which might be
Yeah.
an email, a call, an impromptu in-person visit if you happen to be located in the same city that
Yeah.
where the advisor is. Um, Anything that can deliver a strong first impression, positive first impression.
Absolutely. Are you posting frequently from your personal LinkedIn account? Like, do you have a content strategy involved in this, or is this mostly like outbound um, engagement?
It's really it's both. You need to have a strategy, but what I'd really say you need is like commitment and effort on
Absolutely.
on on LinkedIn, and I think this applies to probably social media in general,
Mm,
right? Um, and that you see accounts that have done really well on social media, and it can just seem so easy. But that's also like looking at, a famous sports player and them making it like Roger Federer, and it's not easy, right?
yeah.
So, social media is kind of the same way. There's a lot of you realize how much consistency of posting,
Yeah.
commenting, engaging, contributing to the community. You realize how much is actually needed before you gain a certain level of status, or on there
Totally.
where you're getting better visibility and better reach. But the organic reach of LinkedIn is very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a, missed opportunity for a lot of salespeople using LinkedIn for outreach. Obviously they're on there to find prospects and slide in their DMs and try to sell them things. But what a lot of them aren't doing is posting their own content and developing their personal brand so that these prospects can get more eyes on, their profile on a timeline and click on them and figure out who they work for. I think that's a real like gap in sales right now, is that you can be using your own personal LinkedIn profile for content marketing and branding for the business that you are doing business for. So yeah,
That's right. That's right.
I'm
And a couple of tips I have is one is like, kind of be vulnerable. Show some information about yourself. It's hard to trust people that we don't know, and then
yeah,
once we get to know them and sort of connect at a very like human to human level, trust usually builds pretty easily. And so you can go on there and you can see I've got a photo, a post about like me and my dad, and this is just some information that if I was cold calling someone, they wouldn't have already had the ability to see some of this story about
absolutely.
me, to get to know me and see whether they want to talk. The other one is don't pitch slap people. So if you do connect and you do slide in someone's DM, um, you know, don't make sort of the first thing you do as like asking for time, or a call. No one
Yeah,
wakes up in the morning hoping they're going to receive a DM just that you were going to ask them for a call.
yeah,
So I'd say, think about what other ways can you create value in that way, and actually just, you know, uh, not be in such a rush in that way.
yeah, totally.
Um,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, it's worked on me a handful of times, and I'm not suggesting a bait and switch here. But I've gotten messages before that were genuinely curious about my career and my job and my knowledge. And they were like, "Hey, I'd love to hop on a call for 10 minutes and just, learn more about who you are and what you do and see if we can, synergize in any way." And I've literally hopped on those calls and really liked the person. And we chatted for like a month before they pitched me their service that they wanted to sell. Like I didn't even see it coming at that point. I was like, oh man, Howard like actually has something that I'm interested in too. Like, no way, I would totally work with this guy. So really like being human, building rapport in a way that's casual and not a robotic sales guy, is just the way that I think you have to sell in 2025. Like, we want to work with humans in a world of robots, so like be a person.
That's right. And one of the probably the most underrated parts of sales or factors of success is timing.
Mm,
And you know, I'd much rather have it be right person, wrong time
mm,
in my efforts. And so it's okay if it's not the right time, but if you're the right person and we sort of have a core philosophy that actually does bind us, then we should just stay in touch, and it's going to
totally.
make sense. And I've noticed a lot of other positive benefits come from this of mutual connections. You're more likely to have more meaningful mutual connections.
Mm,
There might be even intros that come of it, even if you don't end up doing business together. There could be some really
yeah.
great mutuals or intros, and yeah, I mean, I've also personally experienced a lot of really bad first message DMs,
Mm,
being pitched different various products and
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Especially like the 4 paragraph novels
Right.
of like why you should work with us and how we can help you. And it's only a 15-minute call. I'm like, this is never going to work. Who's replying to this? you
Exactly.
know, I really like what you said about right person, wrong time, though, because you never know. I mean, you know this throughout your career, but sometimes it's a 2 week sales cycle, and sometimes it's a 7 year sales cycle. Like, we just closed a deal recently with someone that we started talking to in 2019. And it was someone that was interested in our product, but they were using a different provider and they were locked into these, 3 year contracts. And we kept, poking them, hey, you still with yada yada? How's that going? And then finally, 6 years later, they're like, hey, we're actually looking for another alternative. Like, love to see what you got, nowadays. And boom, they're a client. Like, you never know how long you're going to have a relationship with someone before it turns into a monetary success, So, to any of the salespeople that are getting discouraged, keep your head up. It might work out. Um, all right, so I guess last question I have for today was what led you to choose Advisor Pro over competing solutions in the market?
Well, I mean, I was part of that decision making process. I wasn't, let's say the first person to get the outreach and ultimately run, the whole evaluation
Mm,
along the way of who else, we could go with. Um, when I think about sort of why we chose you guys, from the C-suite downwards, we were just very happy with how we were treated, how prompt everything was, showing up when you say you're going to show up, giving us all the kind of relevant, tailored information that was going to support our use case, and getting to know how we were going to be using the product, so that you could show us. We don't need to know every feature. We need to know the ones that are really going to help us in our day to day,
yeah,
and really understanding that. And I think sort of definitely, the service component helped.
yeah,
Um, helped us make it easy to choose you guys, and
it's awesome.
those are probably what stands out to me.
I love that. Yeah, I couldn't speak more highly of our CS team. any of our clients that come back and, talk about feedback or ideas or how things are going, they always say, y'all's customer success team is so helpful. And like, it seems like they genuinely care about us finding success using this tool. And I
And
think that's awesome.
you've got to have uh, great people on the front lines on your business development and sales team,
Yeah.
like Joe,
Yeah.
right? And so, if you think about that, the best customer success strategy is to have someone like Joe, who's actually there when customers make the purchase, because
Yeah.
he ends up fulfilling kind of both roles for a while.
Yeah. And Joe is the perfect example of that. It's like Joe is a sales guy, but he genuinely cares about this so much that he wants these people to succeed. So he's
Right.
hopping on CS calls. Like, is everything okay? Like, you want me to build a list? I can make this better. I'm like, dude, you don't need to do this, bro. You can do your job. Well, that's awesome. Well, I think that was great. Thank you so much for hopping on, Howard. This has been awesome talking with you. And I think we had a really good interview. How you feeling?
You're welcome. Yeah, it was great, and I continue to hope to find sort of new ways, new ideas to implement, and get excited about new ways to unlock certain features of the product and ways of using it.
Absolutely. Well, if you ever have any feedback or any moonshot ideas of features, you think we should add to the platform, we're always listening. We want to beef this up as much as we possibly can. So we love your feedback and, any ideas that you may have to make this better. So appreciate you, Howard. You did a killer job,